Christianity stands or falls with its revolutionary protest against violence, arbitrariness, and pride of power, with its plea for the weak. Christians are doing too little to make these points clear rather than too much. Christendom adjusts itself far too easily to the worship of power. Christians should give more offense, shock the world far more than they are doing now. Christians should take a stronger stand in favor of the weak rather than considering first the possible right of the strong. I'm going to read it again later, but where do you think this comes from? What era do you think this comes from? Does it sound like William Sloane Coffin at Riverside Church? Or protesters out of the 60s? This is from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And we are about at the anniversary of his execution in 1945. In April, we recognize and we remember the Holocaust. Last week there was a Yom HaShoah, a Holocaust remembrance at Temple Sinai, and I participated in that. And we also remember all those who were not Jews who were killed. But today I want to specifically remember the witness of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Because Dietrich Bonhoeffer was somebody who didn't need to die. He would have not been on anybody's list had he been able to keep his mouth shut. Okay, there was this assassination plot that he got involved with, but it wasn't effective. And he could have stayed in the United States. In 1939, he was here, and he came back. He went back to Germany in order to be with his people. And his own official church hierarchy was so connected to the German government that he and some others formed what they called the Confessing Church. And it began to be an underground church. And so these words were spoken by him in a sermon that he preached the morning that he was executed. Now, I think that we have had far too much of the Easter Bunny kind of love that we love in this church. Not just St. Paul's, I mean in the church. But there are challenges out there, and there are people who are being hurt and harmed. And who is speaking up for them? The reason that I bring this up from Deborah D. Murphy, she's from West Virginia Wesleyan College. The big news there is the mine disaster that has killed 29 miners. And there is the challenge of who is speaking up for them. When we look at the earthquakes in China, where public buildings are falling down right and left because they were built shoddily so somebody who was connected could make money. Who's speaking up for those people? In our own community, where people are being denied their rights to marry, being denied rights to have children or to adopt children, who is speaking up for them? And all too often, the church is among the last to speak up. I believe that particularly this gospel, where Jesus engages Peter, and he engages Peter in a very particular way. Peter has denied Jesus at the Last Supper. He denied Peter 3 times. Peter denied Jesus 3 times. And now Jesus and Peter have seen each other a few times since the resurrection. But they actually haven't reconciled things. They haven't put things, that things have not been healed. So here there is another meal on the beach with barbecued fish. I like to call it the fish fry appearance. And Jesus takes Peter aside after that meal And instead of saying, I told you so, Peter, he simply engages in this back and forth. Peter, do you love me? Feed my lambs. Peter, do you love me? Tend my sheep. Peter, do you love me? Feed my sheep. He does not just say, Peter, it's okay, let's bygones be bygones. He says, Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord, I love you. And Jesus could be saying to him, Peter, my love for you is not based on the fact that you've always been perfect, but I want your love for me to be something that's built on you doing the ministry that you've seen me do, and now I'm turning over to you. I can't feed you anymore. I can't tend the lambs anymore. But you, Peter, and all the rest of you, Mary and James and John, all the rest of you need to do that. If you love me, will you tend, care for, and feed my sheep? And Peter says yes. And what's the last word that Jesus has for Peter? The last words of the gospel from Jesus? Follow me. Follow me. Jesus offered himself and did not have to die, but chose that as his offering and as an example for all of us. And we are asked to also be the people who speak up, who stand up, and who make sure that Christ is not forgotten by making sure that the people who are most in need and who are most weak in our society are not forgotten. I want to read Bonhoeffer's words one more time. Christianity stands or falls with its revolutionary protest against violence, arbitrariness, and pride of power, and with its plea for the weak. Christians are doing too little to make these points clear, rather than too much. Christendom adjusts itself far too easily to the worship of power. Christians should give more offense, shock the world far more than they are doing now. Christians should take a stronger stand in favor of the weak, rather than considering first the possible right of the strong.